So everybody got a chance to try to do this? It wouldn't work for you guys? Okay.
You have to put in the text.
Okay.
How about both things? We just did it on mine.
Okay. We can try to send you the link. Okay. Okay. So welcome. This is our gut reset. Supposed to have been a 3-hour makeover. We're going to shorten it down, and part 2 is going to be next month. So buckle your seats. We're going to try to get as much crammed into this hour and a half-ish as we can. Of course, most of you who are here know Dr. Jake. Those of you who might be joining us online, go ahead and sit down. Those of us who are joining us online, Dr. Jake will be here in just a few minutes. We're going to start doing a little bit differently. He usually does the opening and he picks it up. So those of you who may not know me, my name is Cheryl. I am a registered nurse, and I have been a patient with Dr. Jake about 8 years now. And I was hurting. I had been to a couple different chiropractors. I had been to medical doctors, et cetera, et cetera. I was laying in bed one Saturday morning, and radio came on, and Dr. Jake was on the radio and said, if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, come. So I did. Been here ever since. I started working here about 3 years ago. Before that, I worked at Bryan West, Lincoln General, et cetera, whatever it's all been named. I was there for almost 20 years. I taught nursing for about 18 years, and now I do a lot of tutoring for nursing students. So I keep busy in addition to everything I'm doing here. Again, I've had lots of issues over the years, but I have I've kept coming. I've never been absentee from Dr. Jake, and he's done me a world of good. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about the gut tonight. So I'll kind of do, whoops, there we go. So this is your FAST FSA, Functional Systems Assessment, I think it is. Some of you were able to do this before you got here or before we got started. Others of you, if you weren't able to do it, we'll get you the link so you can do it. If any of you took that LRQ, we've been doing that for a long time, the Lifestyle Risk Questionnaire. It was 20 to 30 minutes. Went very in-depth on lots and lots and lots of stuff. And people weren't very responsive because it took so long. They shortened it up. They pulled out the 5 minutes worth of the most important questions to still get at it. This is what your report will look like. You guys that were able to do it should have this sent to you. I will also get a copy of it. So your scorecard here talks about your vitality score. We want those 85% and higher. This particular, these are not mine, by the way, but mine are similar. I have to say that. But 54%, we want them above 85%. Otherwise, there's something missing. You could be making some changes to be a little bit healthier. This is your functional age. So what age does this study or this assessment say that you are? Okay. If you're 41 and it says you're 41, awesome. If you're 41 and it says you're 39, great. If you're 39 and it says you're 41, Well, maybe you got a few things to change, okay?
If you're 87, 88, and it says you're 87.
Well, there you go. Pretty darn good.
I was wondering if there was a real difference.
There is. It also goes through the 5 essentials. Of course, most of you should know what those 5 essentials are. And I'm not going to read them off of here, but chiropractics, nutrition, oxygen and exercise, mindset, and then minimizing toxins. So it will give you a score in each of those and then make some recommendations. That's kind of what this care plan is all about. To give you kind of a jumping off point. I can look through them as well. And you and I can sit down if you want to, and we can talk it over if you have specific questions. Okay?
I'll take it from here. Cheryl? All right, so if any of you don't know me, I'm Dr. Jake. I'm the one that's been cracking on your back lately. Yeah, no, we opened this office almost 9 years ago today. Yeah, it'll be 9 years exactly. There's soft open in 3 weeks from today. And then we did a hard open on Halloween. So we will actually be having a Halloween party here. That's actually a birthday party on Friday the 31st. So get your costumes ready. There'll be prizes. It'll be fun. It'll be a blast. So that's the fun stuff. Unfortunately, we're not here for the fun stuff, are we? But here's the deal. All right, our nation's in a pretty big trouble, aren't we?
Yes.
As far as our health. Like, I don't have to get up here and tell you that. Like, we see it all over the news. Like, it used to be 10, 15 years ago, you couldn't find somebody to tell you that our healthcare system was amongst the worst of the industrialized nation. And then with Obamacare, with that rolling out, oh yeah, we're not doing so hot with it. And guess what? Since Obamacare, it's even gotten worse. So we've been throwing money at a problem, and throwing money at it has only made it bigger. So we have to figure out why that is. So before I get into why that is, let me tell you a little story. And a lot of you guys have heard this story before, because it's a very common story, especially if you're familiar with the circus. So at the circus, they have elephants most of the time, if you get a nice circus. And oftentimes these elephants, like any other regular creature, they have babies. And they have to train these babies not to run away as adults, because who can control a 300-ton behemoth of an animal? And so what they do is babies. They tie a rope around their ankle, and they put a small peg in the ground. And it's big enough to hold them as the baby, but it's the same peg that they use for their mother. And over the years, the baby gets older and gets bigger, but it still is kept in place by the peg. Why does that peg work? Exactly, mindset. And really, that is the main reason why we're in the trouble, we're having the problems that we have today is mindset. You look at this number, 70 million Americans have gut disorders. Has anybody heard RFK talk about statistics of where health was when his uncle was president? Yeah, and he talks about, I mean, say what you want about the man, but he talks about the statistics. When he was young, it was about 1 in 20 had any sort of chronic disease at all, which is still too much. But 1 in 20 would have chronic disease. This number here, this is 1 in 5. 1 in 5 Americans. And we've recognized that these chronic diseases are an issue, but we put everything, and really we can go back even further. We go back the last 100 years, who have we given the keys to the health cards? Pharmaceutical companies, allopathic medicine. And I am not in any way here to tell you that allopathy is evil. I'm not here to say that your medical doctor is wrong. But what I'm here to say is that they've proven over the years that when you give them the car keys, that with chronic disease, they will just drive that right into the lake. Right? Chronic disease does not get better under medical care. They've proven it over and over and over. They are great at managing your symptoms, making you feel better temporarily, maybe a little bit better, all the while the disease continues building up. The area that they're actually great at is emergency care. And this is where I've told my wife, if The one time you take me to the hospital, the one time you have my permission to give antibiotics or do, anything is when I'm about to die. Otherwise, I do not want to go there because ultimately it does more harm. And this is something that we really do. We have to get out of our heads. I have to get out of my head. I mean, even just 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, time's flying, having too much fun, right? So I had not quite gotten to chiropractic school. I had applied to chiropractic school. I hadn't gotten to chiropractic school. So I didn't know anything that I know now. My whole mindset was if it's on fire, you throw water on it. Like doesn't matter what's making it burn, you throw water on it. And so we came home for Christmas. This is literally like 3 months before I start chiropractic school. And my wife gets sick. And, what do you do when you get sick? Well, my mom, she happens to be friends with all these medical doctors in the area. She calls in a prescription for a Z-Pack. And so my wife, she takes the Z-Pack. Well, guess what happens? She gets better. Why? Well, one, mindset, right? We've been taught that if we take a pill for something that's making us sick, we feel better. And so there's that whole placebo effect that makes us feel good when we're taking the thing that we think makes us feel right. We never tested it to see if it was bacterial. It could have been viral. We don't know. If it was viral, then what it did is it actually took some of the bacterial load off of the immune system while also killing all the good bacteria that are the immune system. And the virus just kind of dissipated on its own while the immune system was doing its thing. 98% of the things we go to the doctor for that they give us antibiotics are actually viral, which means that every time they hand you an antibiotic, they're committing malpractice. Now, they will never be sued for that medical malpractice because when they hand you an antibiotic, you're not going to die today, tomorrow, next week, 2 months from now, not from that anyways. But 20 years from now, when you're dealing with a chronic disease load that's directly related to your gut health, you'll wonder, why is that? And you won't actually connect it to the antibiotics unless you're sitting in a class like this where we dive into the history of that. It ultimately takes you about 2 years to recover your microbiome after you take one round of antibiotics. That's even if you do take probiotics. And so we're gonna get into this. There's gonna be way more things than just antibiotics that we get into. I'm gonna let Cheryl handle most of that because she's been teaching this for about 20 years. But yeah, this is really a crisis. So the real problem is we're just walking around with gut disruption and we have no idea because gut disruption is a very subtle symptom when you first get it. But you let it fester there for long enough and it builds up. It turns into brain issues, skin issues. We'll go into that. So are you struggling with any of these symptoms or do you know someone who's struggling? So brain fog, gut-brain connection. Most of that happens in the gut. Chronic fatigue, you're tired all the time. Starts in the gut. Anxiety or depression, guaranteed you got a gut issue. Anxiety or skin conditions like acne, eczema, rosacea, psoriasis, dry skin. I can go on with that list. If you've got skin issues, you've got gut issues. Gut is a mirror to what's going on. Skin is a mirror of what's going on in the gut. Hormonal imbalances happens in the gut. Sinus allergies, that's an immune system problem. That's in the gut. Joint pain, I deal with joint pain as a chiropractor. Wouldn't that be a misalignment of the joint? Very often it is. But guess what makes you feel that? Inflammation coming from the gut. Constipation, diarrhea, most obvious ones on the list, right? I didn't have to tell you those two. But these symptoms are not normal. Those are signs that your gut is malfunctioning, dysfunctioning, really affecting the entire body. So let's jump into some of these symptoms. So brain fog is not just in your head. Brain clarity is linked to your gut bacteria, specifically the ones that help produce serotonin and dopamine. What percentage of serotonin is produced in the gut? Any guesses? Higher, higher, higher. 90%. That was the closest. 90% of your serotonin is made in your gut. What is serotonin known as? Happy hormone, right? It's a neurotransmitter, right? And then dopamine, also a happy feel-good hormone. 50% of that is made in your gut. Is it possible for your brain to function well and you to feel good if your gut's unhappy. No, it just can't. And so we need to make sure that that's healthy. Tired even after sleep. So let's say you go to bed, you get a full 8-9 hours of sleep, and you wake up and you feel tired. Now, there's a couple different things that this could be. You could be subluxated and it's disrupted everything. It could be that you're breathing through your mouth and it's not properly exchanging oxygen. It could be that you have sleep apnea. Those are common issues. But most often, if you have a gut issue, it's because you're not actually processing the nutrients in the gut. If you're not processing the nutrients in the gut, your gut is working the whole time while you're asleep, and that's consuming more of the energy. And so you're just exhausted and you're nutrient deprived because you didn't absorb everything that you put into yourself. So even a multivitamin, you take that, if you've got leaky gut or dysbiosis or dysfunction, that's going to create issues with absorption. You're not going to end up with those nutrients. Thanks for expensive poop, I'll tell you what. Mood starts in the gut. So we talked about serotonin, we talked about dopamine, I gave you those numbers. Anxiety, depression, irritability, panic attacks. Very, very often. Now, can the gut be fine and the brain be broken? Yes. But given that we don't actually put anything in our brain besides thoughts, how much easier is it to put something in our mouth that's going to disrupt down here? Or not put something in their mouth that's supposed to build here? And so we're going to teach you about that. Gut-brain dysfunction. Do you guys know that there are over 500 million neurons in your gut? There are more nerve endings in your gut than there are in your entire spinal cord. It's pretty incredible. The gut is the third brain. We have the autonomic system, or sympathetic, the parasympathetic, and then we have the gut. And this is, where people say, trust your gut, trust your gut. Well, it's real. You really should, because the gut is based off of more of those emotional, and it remembers things that you might have subconsciously pushed down because it was a painful memory, and it might protect you because it doesn't have that suppression in there, but only if it's healthy again, right? So we want to make sure that we have that healthy gut function. Skin through reflection, all those issues, that is, I guarantee 100%, if you're having any of those, it is coming from your gut. There's something that needs to be fixed in the gut. Allergies are an overreaction, literally an overreaction. So inside your gut, 70% of your immune system, that's where that resides. The rest of that is things like in the lymphatic system, on the skin, and mucosal layers, and some of that's even part of the gut anyways. And so what happens is when that's not healthy, your immune system overreacts to this. And so we want to make sure that that's reacting properly. And then joint pain, I talked about this. So I find joint pain all the time. In fact, people bring joint pain to me, right? That's literally my job. And they come in and they're like, oh, just fix me, doc. And I crack them, realigning everything. Joint's working fine, but it still hurts. Well, systemic inflammation coming from the gut will definitely do that. Systemic problem. Gut health is a whole body issue. Every system is connected. We can't think of ourselves as individual, like built up of all these different mechanisms. Those mechanisms are interdependent and rely on each other. They work together. You can't cut one out and expect everything to work well. So we have to focus on getting healthy. Gut talks to your brain, and most people aren't listening. We're not listening to our guts. It's giving us symptoms. It's giving us signs. So this might be the most important slide as far as understanding it. So you see all these little tubes in here, right? It is a tube, right? Literally a hole from the top to the bottom. It's technically outside your body, inside your body, if that makes sense. But inside these tubes is just a single layer of cells. It's called a semi-permeable membrane. And if you look at one edge of that tube, and just cut that down to just the cells there, what you've got are these cells here, semi-permeable junctions. Some of these cells actually will allow things to pass through the center. And from the gut, this is where the tube is up here, and into the space that allows it to absorb into the blood. And so if you're eating, grass-fed beef, if you're eating, a coconut, you're eating a handful of nuts, whatever, and it comes in here, all the stuff that your body wants to absorb, the nervous system tells this what to let in and what not to let in. And so it's like, oh, hey, we need more protein, we need more amino acids, we need more, medium chain fatty acids, we need more short chain fatty acids. It's gonna go, whoop, open, and then, oh, don't let anything else in, close. And so it pulls in what it needs and it keeps out what it doesn't need. Now this green part here, this is the mucosal barrier, literally mucus. It should be thick and open, so the stuff that's going through there should get caught and trapped in that, so that your body, your nervous system, can tell those mucosal cells and tell the semi-permeable membrane here, hey, that's caught in here, we can actually pull that in and draw it in better. So it can get stuck there for a few days and then it can release it and let it go, depending on whether it needs what's in there. However, when we damage the mucosal area, which is easy to do, we're going to do that. All the things that break down that mucosal barrier. That makes things pass through a whole lot faster. But it also is this shorter barrier that allows things to come in here. Now, if we get irritants, and we'll get into some of what those are, they can start passing through there. Notice that this is wider. And then things like viruses and bad bacteria can pass from the gut into the bloodstream and end up in different places. Now, when you talk about autoimmune conditions, what happens is, let's say instead of a short chain of amino acids being lodged here and then your body deciding to pull it in, now instead you've got a full length amino acid chain that's actually protein. It gets pulled in here and your immune system has to respond to that. Your immune system's job is to come in and make sure that that doesn't damage. Now, if that happens often enough, your immune system's gonna be like, hey, Mr. Smarty Pants here, I see what you're doing. And it's gonna start having cytokine reaction to that type of protein. Well, guess where else you have that type of protein in your body? Joints, muscles, tendons, all the places that build up connective tissue. It's like, oh, we're finding this stuff all over the place. And so it starts attacking it. That's called an autoimmune reaction. Things like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, you go on down that list. That's the process by which that happens. So that's how arthritis happens from your gut. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is really addressing this. This is the break. This is the problem. There's a lot of labels for it, a lot of diagnoses for it, but this is ultimately the problem we're trying to fix. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So what is gut dysbiosis? So let's break this down. All medical terminology is just Latin, typically, or some dude's name. This is not some dude's name. There's no gut dysbiosis that was like, hey, I discovered this condition. No. So gut, literally pointing to this area of the body, very general. Dys, meaning malfunction. Bio, short for biome or environment, and osis, condition. So what does that mean? Your gut's malfunctioning. So you get a diagnosis of gut dysbiosis, which it's all over the literature now. 10 years ago, you couldn't talk about it because there was no literature. Now it's all over the literature. Gut dysbiosis, it's literally gut dysfunction. And so when we're looking at that, we're looking at a variety of symptoms, a variety of things that can go wrong. Now, typically that has to do with the bacteria. There's what we call pathogenic bacteria, which in small amounts is actually really healthy for your gut. It's like the yin to the yang if you're going Eastern with it. It's the balance. It's what balances out, when you're walking on the pool. You need a little bit of pathogenic bacteria for a healthy microbiome. It keeps the good bacteria strong. We don't want to kill all those guys off. We just want them in very trace amounts. And so the other ones, the good bacteria, those are the ones that we want to grow and flourish. We want to feed those guys well, not really feeding the other guys. Those guys will show up no matter what because they're everywhere. Fecal material that gets on your shoes and gets in your house and you don't wash your hands and then you put food in your mouth. Very easy to get those bad guys, especially if you have kids, right? Or are around kids. But the good guys, it's very easy to kill those off and not feed them the right foods because the right foods are the ones that they sell for 99 cents for a 6-pack. If you know what I'm saying. So we're gonna get into that. So unfortunately, part of the problem here is our fix. So at risk of stealing more of Cheryl's thunder, I'm gonna go ahead and let her take this one.
Right.
That is one of the things that I tutor a lot. So these are a lot of the problems for the gut. Antacids, Tums, Maalox, Mylanta, they do just exactly that. They decrease the acid in your gut. Okay? Your gut needs that acid to break down the food that you're eating. So if we neutralize the acid, we're not able to break down the foods. I'm going to add in there the H2 blockers, the histamine 2 blockers, the Pepcid, the Tagamet, that classification, famotidine, if you're knowing those. They're called H2 blockers. They block the histamine that's in your gut. Again, they're not allowing the acid in the stomach to do what it's supposed to do because they're not going to allow the pumps in your stomach that make the acid to secrete the acid. PPI, proton pump inhibitor, that's your Prevacid, Protonix, Omeprazole is the generic name, Pantoprazole. Those are called proton pump inhibitors. What they do is prevent that pump in the stomach from making the acid in the first place to secrete it out. Okay? All of that is not good over the long term. Dr. Jake talked about the effects of we need that acid in the stomach to do what that stomach needs to do. Antibiotics, they're not going to necessarily affect the acid, but they're going to kill off the good bacteria as well as the bad bacteria. Okay? Again, the good bacteria are easier to kill than the bad stuff. Antidepressants. You heard him talk about serotonin in the gut. Guess what a lot of antidepressants are? Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. What that means is they're going to prevent us from being able to use that serotonin. What's that going to do? Mess up the brain, okay? Mess up the gut. NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, aspirin, ibuprofen, naproxen sodium, and then those are just the over-the-counter ones. There's about 20 probably prescription NSAIDs. They are chewing up that mucosal lining that he talked about. They can actually cause bleeding by causing an erosion of that mucosal layer. And they also prevent your platelets from working. And platelets help form clots or help plug up the, I kind of think of platelets as a tire patch. Okay? Platelets aren't going to stick together if you're taking an NSAID also. Also, what do they do to the inflammatory process? Decrease it. We need that inflammation going on to help spur the process. What else? Hormonal birth control. Okay? Those hormones were made with certain hormones, and we're supposed to have those in certain order, but hormones can wreak havoc with our system as well. Ozempic and all the other brands or generics, the GLP-1s, what are those for? Weight loss? Well, yes, that's what they're currently being used for. The original reason was diabetes, type 2 diabetes to help make me eat less. So therefore, I'm going to lower my blood sugar. They figured out that, hey, it does a whole lot of stuff to the brain, makes me not hungry, makes me eat less, I get full faster, it paralyzes the gut, so I don't take in as much food. It also can cause nausea, it can cause bloating, flatulence, a lot of other things too. And unfortunately, people, when they stop the Ozempic or the GLP-1s, tend to gain the weight because it didn't change their dietary habits typically. Some people do. Okay. Gut quick fix to gut paralysis, but they don't heal to that. SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. Kind of a new diagnosis, again, maybe in the last 8 to 10 years. They've started describing this. Dr. Jake told you we've got a lot of bacteria in our gut. We should have more in our large intestine than we have in our small intestine. That large intestine bacteria can overgrow and move on up to the small intestine. Again, irritability, flatulence, bloating, gut distension, nausea, feel like crap, diarrhea, lots of things happen there.
So how far up into the small intestine?
It can go all the way to the duodenum if we don't catch it soon enough. Okay, if you have significant signs and symptoms, probably you're gonna go say, what the heck's going on? And they'll catch it when it's, a fourth or half of the way up the small. Irritable bowel syndrome and inflammatory bowel disease. Irritable bowel syndrome is kind of an odd one. There's no diagnostic tests for it. There is no lab work. There's a colonoscopy is not going to tell us you have it. We're just going to treat and see if it gets better. Okay. What it is related to stress, is what they've kind of decided. What else? It is just irritable, again, constipation and or diarrhea, sometimes both. My daughter was diagnosed with this when she was 6th grade, however old that makes her. Hers was definitely related to stress. That's the year she went from grade school to middle school. I don't know why it was so stressful, but it was incredibly stressful. She still gets that way at times, even if it was a happy. Going to grandma's for Christmas, she would get constipated and just feel miserable. Going to camp, those types of things. So we got to the point where she has to start she takes Citracel just to help. And she takes it a couple weeks before she goes on a trip, a couple weeks before she anticipates, and then she doesn't have any problems. Now, mind you, it took me 6 years to convince her to treat prophylactically, but she's got other issues too. Inflammatory bowel diseases, those are autoimmune. This is the Crohn's disease. This is the ulcerative colitis. The main difference between those is ulcerative colitis starts at the rectum and goes up. That colon gets very irritated, inflamed, that mucosal layer gets destroyed, and there can be bleeding associated with that, along with cramping, diarrhea, bloating, etc. Crohn's disease, on the other hand, can start anywhere from the anus to the mouth. It is called cobblestone or skip lesions, and it's very similar, but you may have a section of colon that's really inflamed, and then a section of colon that works quite well. Again, a lot of inflammation. Both of those are autoimmune. Dr. J kind of explained what's going on with a lot of autoimmune diseases. These two are not typically diagnosed by colonoscopy. That doesn't mean it's the cause. Like it says, we just know what the symptoms are. Now we can attack. We need to attack the gut to help heal those intestines. Reflux is not from too much acid. Most reflux is caused by too little acid, poor motility, or a broken valve. So if we don't have enough acid in our gut, that food's going to sit there longer and it's going to start to ferment. And then we're going to get gas from the fermenting foods and we're going to feel more miserable. Then guess what? We've got a valve at the end of our esophagus, at the top of our stomach. It's called the distal esophageal sphincter. That's going to get weakened. So that's your faulty valve. Food that's in that stomach is going to come back up. That acid is, the stomach contents are still more acidic than the esophagus. They're going to burn as that comes back up. Hopefully it'll go back down as it continues to reflux up and down. That's burning that esophagus every time it comes up. It can cause a change in those cell layers. I don't know if any of you have heard of Barrett's esophagus. That's the doctor's name that described it. It's not a Latin word, but those cells are changed to help protect the esophagus. If that's not remedied, it can turn into esophageal cancer. Okay, because again, that stress of that acid reflux is causing the cells to change. Gluten or celiac disease. It's not the gluten necessarily, but it's what the gluten has done. Again, it opens up those little spaces between those cells, makes that cell wall more permeable, so those bad things can get out of the gut into the bloodstream. So we need to limit the gluten, but we also need to heal the gut as well as healing the nervous system. So your 5 essentials: core chiropractic, nutrition, mindset, oxygen and exercise, and minimizing toxins. These are things that, of course, your body needs to work at its maximum function, but there are also things that your body can't make for itself. So that's why we at Max Living focus on these 5 essentials. So nutrition, you eat, what you eat is what you feed your microbiome. Okay? So we're feeding that microbiome that resides in our gut. We need to feed it healthy, nutritious. We want those good bacteria to prosper, and we don't want so many of those bad bacteria. Hidden toxins in our food supply. Anybody look at the labels of some commercially purchased foods, and you can't produce 98% of them, you know? I think somewhere I read if there's more than 5 ingredients, put it back down on the shelf. If it doesn't have a label, you're probably pretty healthy, because what doesn't have a label? Your fruits, your vegetables, your fresh produce. Glyphosate. Glyphosate started out as an antibiotic. That's how it was initially. We use it for a pesticide. And so now we can't get it off of our foods. That's why we want to go more organic with some of those fruits and vegetables that have thinner skins on them, because we can't wash it out. GMOs, crops and pesticides. Well, most things can be made in a laboratory. They're not good for you anyway. Certainly God didn't set up the laboratories for us to make our food, right? And then added the pesticides to keep the bugs away from these precious chemicals. And then stress. We talked about antidepressants. We talked about the serotonin. Stress, the sympathetic nervous system, is our fight or flight. Those neurotransmitters are typically epinephrine and norepinephrine. They're going to increase your heart rate, increase your blood pressure, open up some blood vessels, close down other blood vessels, shut down the gut. The way I talk to my students is when your sympathetic nervous system is activated, think about it as you're running from a lion. Okay? When you're running from a lion, you don't want to have to stop and take a dump behind the bush because that lion's going to get you. So if you think about it, that's what stress is doing. It's shutting down your gut. Okay. So a glyphosate again kills beneficial bacteria, lactobacillus. Those are the good stuff that we like in our probiotics. Allows those bad ones to thrive. The Clostridium. Some of you probably heard of Clostridium difficile. It's a nasty super bug that you've been treated with antibiotics. Then you get diarrhea. You probably have C. diff. Leads to dysbiosis. What does dysbiosis mean? Did he not just say that? Okay. Dysfunction of the gut. And then damages the gut lining and makes it more leaky. Glyphosate weakens the gut lining. He talked about those junctions that are going to spread out and let more things through that shouldn't ought to. Autoimmune diseases. I told you my daughter had a few other issues. My daughter also has an autoimmune disease. It's called ankylosing spondylitis. My brother's daughter has rheumatoid arthritis. These girls were 22, 23 when they were diagnosed. A really good friend of mine who I grew up with, her daughter's the same age. Her daughter has rheumatoid arthritis. Now tell me there's not some connection from that little farming community that we grew up in. There are other people about the same age as our kids that also have other autoimmune diseases. It's a farming community, lots of pesticides. We didn't know any better. I mean, when I was growing up, obviously it has affected our DNA and passed it along to our children. Thyroid, joint, and skin issues. So they definitely have the joint issues with the rheumatoid and the ankylosing spondylitis, skin issues as well. Okay. GMO crops, again, your genetically modified crops carry the highest chemical loads because, again, they were created in a lab or altered in the lab so that they would withstand a lot of the bugs that are out there. They grow faster. Farmers could make more money on them, have higher yields. The top 5 foods that are destroying your gut: alcohol, sugar. We know sugar leads to a lot of inflammatory processes. Gluten, we've talked about that. Seed oils, damaging fats. What are the 3 healthiest fats that we talked about? Avocado, olive, coconut. There you go. And then conventional dairy. How do they get cows to produce milk year round? Growth hormones. What do they feed these cows? Corn with steroids, corn with glyphosate on them, other grains. So you're getting those chemicals that your food was raised with. Okay. So eat organic, avoid the dirty dozen. Everybody know where you get the dirty dozen list? EWG, it's the Environmental Working Group, EWG.org. Every year they update the dirty dozen, which are those 12 foods that you need to get organic because they're going to have the least amount and no pesticides. They also have a he does in Clean 15. So the 15 foods that are least likely to have pesticides that you don't have to get in the organic. They tend to be the ones with the thicker skins that you peel off. And don't eat. Okay. Gut healing foods. I can't tell you how many times in the last month I've heard Dr. Jake say, get some bone broth. Get some bone broth. It's going to heal. Okay. It's going to give your stomach a rest from all of the other toxins that you may be putting in it. And it's certainly going to help that gut. Prebiotics, probiotics, those fermented foods, those healthy fats that we talked about, good proteins, grass-fed, grass-finished beef, free-range chicken, wild-caught seafood. Detox pathways, we want to increase fiber, glutathione and zinc. And then I think we've said enough about GMOs, just avoid them. Your corn syrup, how much syrup do you get out of a corn? Or how much oil can you get out of the top of corn? Not much. You have to do a lot of processing. Soy oil, again, soybeans and canola. Okay. Those are the bad ones. Beef tallow is preferred over those seed oils, those ancient fats. We do fasting? Okay.
Yeah, so fasting, when you have gut issues, actually not fast for most people, especially females. So if you're female with a gut issue, I wouldn't actually go beyond 16 hours. Right? It's just the way that the gut's broken, it's not fixed very well. Now, if you do tolerate fasting and you have gut issues, if you can get to 36 hours, your body actually starts releasing stem cells in the gut to repair it. So it's kind of a dichotomy. If you're not tolerating, don't do it. So this is not one where I can say, oh yeah, carte blanche, everybody fast for 36 hours with stem cells, because you might do more damage in the meantime. But what everybody should respond well to is something called intermittent fasting, which is those longer breaks during the day to allow our gut to rest. You know, and if you can, I mean, the easiest way to do this is to use nighttime as a big chunk of time. So you get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Let's assume 8, right? Because we're all really good at sleeping. This is so good for us. And then we build on the front end and we build on the back end. Actually, the evening time, right before you go to bed, that's actually more important to include in the fast. I've heard it said, you know, for breakfast and lunch, eat like a king and queen, and for dinner, eat like a pauper. All right. But it's really even the hours before you go to bed. You need a minimum, regardless of whether you're fasting or not, of 2 hours before you go to bed to just process the last of the food. So you shouldn't have ice cream and then go down. That's probably the worst possible thing, especially if it's like Breyers or Ben and Jerry's, because then you're getting all the other stuff that Cheryl just talked about on top of it. But if you can back that up, that ice cream that you have 2 hours, that won't damage your gut as much, because you'll have more time for your body to rest and process and digest it. Now it's not just sitting there as your body's trying to go into healing phase, it's stuck in digestion phase. Your gut is responsible for healing and it's also responsible for digestion. So sitting and waiting, you know, with food in your gut is not allowing you to enter the healing phase. So gut issue, any of these other issues that we talked about, you have to make sure that your gut is allowed the time to heal properly. So at a minimum, even if you don't incorporate intermittent fasting, add those 2 hours before bedtime where you're not consuming anything. That is vitally important. And then play with fasting. If you can get yourself up to 16 hours a day where you're not, you know, taking 4 hours before you go to sleep, in 4 hours at the front end of the day, now you're up to 16. You're eating between basically, we'll just say, for instance, noon and 8, and that's it. You go noon to 8, you go to bed at midnight. Yeah, that's not the ideal sleep schedule, but that's pretty good. Is that a question, or are you saying that's me?
No, what's the best thing during your fast? Like, I hear people do juice fast,
Mhm.
people do broth.
Yep.
What's the best
So
thing?
yeah, it depends on the person, for sure. My wife loves how I respond to juice. Like she's like, skin just brightens up, you
What
look
kind of
10 years
juice?
younger. I do green juices. And I'm too bit, like we have a juicer at home, I'm too busy to like shove it in there for every single meal and make enough. So I just go over to Trader Joe's and I get their organic cold pressed juice off the shelf. I think they've got a nice like 64 ounce. It's recent, it's cold pressed, it's organic, and it's like $6. So not bad. Like I've seen half that size for twice as much. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's not bad. And then I'll do that. I'll pick one day a week and I'll go 24 hours with that. And I would recommend weekly if you can tolerate it, do a 24-hour fast, and then once per year, do a 36-hour fast or 48, because it's really 36 to 48 where you're getting those stem cells released. But again, make sure you can tolerate it. And women, you're just probably going to have more trouble than that. So fair warnings with that. So in general, 12 to 16 hours of rest is the sweet spot. Most of the research on fasting was done on 8-hour eating intervals, and it was because the researcher that was working in the lab, he was a graduate assistant, newly married, and his wife let him stay in the lab for 8 hours. So just about all the research that's published on fasting is 8 hours because he couldn't stay in there longer to expand that eating at all. So we have 16-hour fast is well documented how it helps with. So it's pretty important. So 5 essentials to real health. Yes, nutrition is key. Advanced Plan is not perfect for all of these issues. It is a healing diet. It's a gut healing diet in general. But what we find is that oftentimes when you have some of these gut issues, raw foods irritate it. So fresh fruits, fresh vegetables actually make it worse. You think there's a powerhouse of nutrient-rich ones, they're nutrient dense, but because that mucosal layer has been broken down so bad, or because you don't have the good bacteria to feed anymore, that now just the bad bacteria are running amok even with the foods that should be healthy for us. And that's where bone broth would be another good example of things that you can do during the fast to drink, because it is so healing for the gut and helps build up that mucosal layer. So
You talk about bone broth, are you talking about powder broth? Is that what you're talking about? Or is it something about-
So I think there are some powders out there that are acceptable, but it adds a layer of processing to it that actually just adds cost. The best and cheapest way to do bone broth is to buy a whole chicken, bake it, pull all the meat off it, save that, eat it, whatever you want to do. Put the carcass in the crock pot or on the stock pot on the stove and let it simmer for 24 to 48 hours and just cover it in water. And you can season it, you can put other things in it, apple cider vinegar. So that depends on if you're having a gut issue. Because apple cider vinegar, while it's really beneficial because it's got those prebiotics in there and it's typically very healthy, just like salad, it can really irritate the damaged gut. And so you have to know how your gut's going to react to it. So if you've got gut issues, before you jump into a bone broth cleanse, make sure you respond well to apple cider vinegar in there, because it pulls more nutrients out of the bones into the broth, but it can also aggravate the gut too. So it depends on who we're talking to. If we're talking to someone with Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, you probably want to stay away from that.
You brought it up.
Yeah.
They wanted to diagnose me with Crohn's and I know where that goes.
Yeah.
But I had the IBS and the ulcerative colitis,
Mhm.
and I went gluten free, and it went away.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and the reason why gluten makes the gut icky is something called zonulin, and that's something that we test for when we do our GI Spotlight test. And how much zonulin you have in your system tells us how weak your gut is. So that's a really important one. So if we're going to reset the gut, if we want to heal it, right, these are the things that we have to have. This is the whole protocol. This is a 2-month protocol. You get, basically, you're getting 30 days of the first part, and then you're getting 30 days of the second part of this. So very first thing that we got to do is we got to get the bad stuff out of it, right? You know, whether you're dealing with just leaky gut or you've got small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, you got to remove the bad stuff, because leaky gut's letting bad stuff in. We got to get that out. So most doctors, when they see some of these conditions, they'll throw you on an antibiotic, which also kills the good stuff. This GI remove is not going to kill all of the good stuff. It is harsh on the good stuff, which is why the second part of this is so important. But we do have to get that out. So this has things like in here. It's got something called Akkermansia in there, and it really, it does. It goes in and it naturally kills those things off. It's really important. You can't do this without getting the bad stuff out. It's way more gentle than an antibiotic. But we do, right? We want to protect the good stuff. So microbiome support is really important. So S. boulardii, Saccharomyces boulardii, anytime you take an antibiotic, this should be right with it. This protects the good bacteria. It's not perfect. It's not going to go in there and put a titanium shield around them, protect them, but it will deplete the damage. It's like giving the good bacteria a bunker when you drop that atom bomb on the city of your gut. That is the antibiotic. So make sure you have this anytime you're filling a Z-pack or you're filling an antibiotic, because otherwise you've got 2 years that you're going to have to take probiotics for just to build that back up. So this should be on everybody's shelves. Next, so that's the first month. So we got 30-day supply of this. I believe this is 6 capsules a day, and this is just 1 capsule a day. So you got 7 capsules for 30 days. And then at the end of this is second month, we have to repair that gut lining. If you've got small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, you probably got some leaky gut. You got some of these other things going on. Now we've got to build that up. So this has all the things in it that, number one, will help to suppress the zonulin so that you're not creating leaky gut. So those cells can come back together. It builds up the mucosal layer. So even if you have the gap junction cells are spread apart, the mucosal layer is still, it's catching everything before it goes in. So you're going to get less damage as it goes in. And then it's also rebuilding and restoring the cells in the gut line. So a very vital part of this, absolutely. And because we're also dealing with depressed digestive enzymes, because where they're produced in your digestive system, and because we've also suppressed the good bacteria over this process as well, we also have to replenish. So the replenish is the prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotic metabolites, just in case your body's not ready to produce those yet. And then the replace, it's your biles and it's your digestive enzymes. In the biles, yes, if you have a gallbladder, you're still going to need to supplement with the bile just because your digestive system isn't ready yet to start producing that at its full level. If you've lost your digestive, or you lost your gallbladder for one reason or another, then this should be something you take every single day. You need that bile to come in and break down the fats that you need. And your liver will be producing some of those, but you're going to create more issues with your liver if you rely on that by itself, create all that bile without having a gallbladder. So you need that as well. So this is a powder. You're taking 1 scoop a day. It actually tastes pretty good. I think it's lemon and ginger is the flavor. And it's ginger flavor because it has ginger in it. It's lemon flavor because it has lemon in it. Those are things that are really good for the gut. But it tastes good. You can put it in a smoothie. You can put it in a glass of water. It's not, and by good, I mean, doesn't taste like chalk, right? Because you guys have had some of those plant proteins. It tastes like chalk. It's great for you. Awful to drink. This is not bad. Not bad. I would say good sometimes, depending on the GI replace, I believe, is 1 capsule per meal because it's digestive enzymes. You want it to be there. You take it right before you eat, and now you have those digestive enzymes waiting for you in your small intestine as the foods come into the stomach to break down. And then the GI replenish, this is 1 a day. And this one you take with a meal. And so you're eating food. So you're decreasing the amount of capsules. So if you're having any of these issues, then it's the 4 hours, right? Now, yeah, more than that, that's where we have to have the GI spotlight testing. We'll cover that at the end. That helps us test to see exactly what else we have to add. But even there, what we see, and we've done about a dozen of these GI spotlight tests so far, is everybody gets the 4R protocol, but they also might get some other things, or we might space it out a little different depending on what's going on inside. So specialized diets for healing and restoring. So another thing that we need to look at is sometimes that diagnosis is for us. Your medical doctor is not going to change anything except the drug that. What we're going to do is we're going to specialize your diet, make it very specific to what you're going through. So a SIBO diet versus a leaky gut diet versus just somebody who's celiac ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease is very different one to the next, and it's different person to person. And so that's why I recommend that GI Spotlight test to come in and be able to tell us what we need as far as the diet to go alongside the supplements, whether it's the 4-hour protocol or adding on to that as well. So, but this is really important, right? Anybody ever make a turkey like this? Not intentionally, but here's the thing: if you do the math, 300 degrees over 3 hours, you should just be able to put it in the oven for 900 degrees for 1 hour, right? Easy math. I mean, we all did fifth grade. If you follow the instructions, it turns out better, right? And so step one, and this is any healing process. We can step back from the gut for a second. We can say anything in your body that you want to heal. Step one, identify the cause. And you're going to have to put an asset into that. Very, very likely we've got multiple causes going on for anything, whether that's joint pain or sciatica, or neck pain, or going too much or going too little, or whatever it is, skin issues. Identify the root cause. Number two, we have to remove the interference from the body's natural healing process. Your body already knows how to heal ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. Your body already knows how to heal IBS, SIBO, all these things that we just talked about. But if we're constantly poisoning ourselves, if we're constantly layering on the interference to that process, that's where the healing is stopped. And then once we've removed the interference and identified the cause, now we have to restore the balance, right? Because sometimes the healing process itself hurts. Anybody ever sprain an ankle? What causes the pain? Is it the damaged ligament? No, it's your body's immune reaction to the damaged joint. It's bringing all that blood and the white blood cells in to heal it. That causes the most pain. So I'm not telling you to embrace the pain, but it sure as heck am telling you not to block the healing process. So we have to restore balance. So that's the process to healing. So mindset, right, we talked about stress. It is absolutely a gut wrecker. Stress can kill you by itself. You could be doing everything else right. And if you're just stressed to here, so what do? Do we focus on decreasing the stress? Is that going to help? A little bit. Problem is you're still focusing on the stress, right? Stress can't be part of the solution. We have to create peace. And so that ultimately stress and the toxic stress that we've experienced during, especially these last 5 years, is a result of doing everything opposite of how God created us. He put us in a garden outside 24 hours a day. Where do we put ourselves? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need 4 walls with artificial lights, not sunlight. Sunlight's bad. We might get skin cancer. We need sunshine. We need fresh air. We need exercise. We need something to take care of. And if we don't have all 4 of those things on a daily basis for hours a day, we will experience not just stress, but toxic stress. And so we have to get outside. We have to get in nature. We have to experience those good things. So how do you create peace then? Bathe in a forest. Go roll around in the grass. You pray. Pray is good. Praying outside is better. Mm-hmm. Yep. Go hug a tree. You know, that used to have negative connotations, right? There used to be all those crazy liberals in their tree hugging ways. No, it's good for us. We should be in nature. You know, that's one of the good things Teddy Roosevelt did is he created all these national parks that we can get out to and experience. So, a lot of good things there. Now, exercise. Exercise can create stress. One of the biggest things we see with gut issues is marathoners. And also people that do 2 or more hours of CrossFit a day. I like CrossFit. I like that high intensity interval training. But what happens is when you exercise for more than 30 minutes, your body starts producing more cortisol than it's good for. And that cortisol puts you into fight or flight mode, which shuts down your gut. And then when you go to eat your high protein meal to build those muscles that you were just working on, you're actually damaging the gut, even if it is a bone broth protein. And so we need exercise. We need movement. So like a 2-hour walk is not going to do that, right? Not unless you're really stressing yourself and you're making yourself kids and really sweat and you're not getting hydrated and not getting all the appropriate electrolytes. I'm not saying that That's the best form of exercise, but that's way better than marathon training. That's way better than doing 2 hours of CrossFit every single day or hitting the gym for 2 hours, pushing iron. But the best form of exercise that I found the most effective, besides the one that you do every day, that's always the best one, right? Is Max T3. Now this was gone for a while. We got Max Living Corporate got hacked. They blocked our access to all the videos and all the modules. But if you go to maxt3.com today, everybody gets free access to these exercises. You can do this from your living room. They're 15 minutes. And every single exercise movement has beginner level, which a lot of us in this room need, including me. I tore my meniscus a couple months ago. It's still not back. I need beginner level stuff, especially for legs. It has moderate and it has Olympic level because Max Living takes care of the Olympic athletes, especially the wrestlers and jiu-jitsu. So Max T3 is probably the best program I've ever seen as far as fitness, in being synergistic and holistic with its approach to how our bodies heal and function. Right? You can get other good exercise. If you like something, I'm not going to say quit it, but if you haven't tried Max T3, definitely go to the website, jump on there and start doing it. Exercise, getting your body moving to get your body. Minimize toxins. So we talked a lot about glyphosate and pesticides. I'm not going to hit that again, but eating well definitely improves that. But if you guys don't realize, there are way more toxins than just what's on our food. Go back to the toxicity class. We call it spring cleaning. We do it every single spring. We talk about the toxins in our environment because most of them are the things that we're cleaning up or the things we're cleaning with. Some of them are the things that we're eating. Some of them are the things that we're eating with or preparing our foods with. Some of it's the foods, things that we're storing our foods in. All those things can be very disruptive to the gut. So let's eliminate those. We have to eliminate those and make safe, healthy swaps on those. We do that with food. We also do that with food preparation, cleaning preparation. It can be very inexpensive to make healthy swaps for toxicity. What's more expensive, Dawn dish soap or washing with vinegar or baking soda? Baking soda is way more expensive than Dawn, right? No, you can make it more expensive doing it the healthy way, but I have to go here. What does your spine have to do with your gut? Right? Because so many people are just like, oh yeah, well, if I've got a gut issue, I just need to take all these supplements, or I just need to eat this way, and then you cut these things out. But what's more important than all of those things? The brain-body connection. Because while the gut may be part of the brain, the gut brain, it gets there through the nervous system. And if that's interfered with at all, how well is your gut going to be functioning? Not well at all. So 3 steps to healing, right? Identify the cause, remove the interference, restore balance. Research is showing that just 3 hours of sitting, anybody do that recently? Yeah, Saturday for a football game or 3 reduces your digestion by 30%. What happens if you do that for hours and hours a day, a week, a month, a year? Well, why does that happen? Why does that do that? You're not actually restricting the space in your gut, not actually pressing on anything in your gut. What happens is you're supposed to have this 45-degree curve in your low back when you stand up. Now, this is an average. Some of you have gone through a transition exam recently where I found you were normal, as opposed to just telling you the average normal. But this is the average normal. When you have a 45-degree curve in your low back, that allows for proper nerve flow and electrical current flow through the spinal cord and through those nerve roots out to your gut. When you sit down, just by putting you guys here for an hour and 5 minutes now, I've reduced that curve by 10 degrees. I now have to take 10 degrees off of your normal if I'm taking an X-ray, if I sit you down. And so by taking that curve out, what does that do to the spinal cord? Stretches it. And that stretching, just like a rubber band, starts to get gaps and holes when you stretch it out. That stretching decreases the amount of signal that can go out to the digestive system. And so if you're sitting for hours a day in front of a computer or with the grandkids or in front of the TV, worse, right? That's actually damaging your digestion without necessarily even putting anything in your mouth or even affecting your mindset. And so we need to make sure that that stays healthy. So this young lady over here, many of you probably know, That's Clara Ruth. She's a beautiful person in this office. We love her to death. She actually has been in this office longer than most people in this room. She was one of the very first people we brought into the office. And when we met her, it was actually my sister Havla, who was my first office manager here. She was out at Hy-Vee, and Clara Ruth stopped, and they were kind of talking about, you know, all the things that were going on with her, but it basically boiled down to she had just joint pain, things hurt in her body, which, yeah, I think she was about 74. Which, yeah, a lot of 74-year-olds have joint pain. They have wear and tear over the years, using one hand more than the other, sleeping on the same side, getting on the same side of the bed every single day. All these routines that we get in the habit of can wear things out unevenly, and that can create arthritis by itself. That's a very easy way to do it. But when she came into the office and we got a more thorough history, we found out that Clara Ruth had a condition, Crohn's disease, which we've learned about tonight. And when I took a look at Clara Ruth's evidence, she didn't have a 45. She didn't have a 35. She didn't have a 25. She had a 15-degree curve. Her sacral base here is supposed to tilt the amount that your lumbar curve should be, was 5 degrees. And so obviously I'm thinking, well, duh. Now, Clara Ruth, she had lived out in Western Nebraska. She lived in a lot of places, but she had retired basically out to Western Nebraska and developed the Crohn's disease. And now she had moved back to Lincoln because they didn't have proper medical care with ulcerative colitis. Even amongst medical doctors, it's very rare. Unfortunately, it's not very rare here in Nebraska. When I was going through chiropractic school, they said, well, maybe once every 10 years you will experience somebody that has this type of condition. I experience it at least 5 times a year. It is very common here, and it has to do with the farming practices and the pesticides that have gotten into the local water aquifer, which is where we get most of our water. So she moved when she got her new rheumatologist. He said, we're going to be able to help you. I'm going to get you on this drug protocol. It's going to take about 2 years to help put your ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease into remission. And on top of that, those special drugs that he had for her were going to cost about $10,000
A month?
a month.
Oh.
Yes, a month. Very specialized, right? Yeah, and some people say eating healthy is expensive, right? So she's waiting. She's waiting though, because he's got a 6-month waiting list to go see him. And she finds me in the interim. And so I say, okay, so he said 2 years to get you into remission. Give me the same 2 years. I'm not going to charge you $10,000 a month, no matter how much stuff I get. I'm probably not going to get to 10,000 in 2 years, even if I give you everything. She said, okay. So she put off her appointment with her doctor. We started off 3 times a week, like we do with just about everybody. She wasn't cured after 3 months, but we moved her down to once a week because her curve in her low back had gone from 15 up to 25. That's awesome, right? Her tilt and her sacrum had moved up to 13 degrees. That's fantastic. All the joint pain's still there, but feeling better, right? Her body's functioning a little better as we take pressure off the spinal cord. We keep working. We're working once a week. Now, granted, Clara Ruth, back when she was still driving, she was at every single one of these. After every single one of these, she would schedule a consultation with me. That was back when I did all the consultations. And we would sit down, and I didn't have the 4-hour protocol. I had to learn all this stuff. Like, what do we do with Crohn's disease? How do we heal the gut? And so I'd be picking Josh Axe's brain. I'd be picking Dr. Lohman's brain. I'd be picking, Dr. Nick Wilson's brain. I'd find a nutritionist. Like, okay, where are the things? I'd bring them in. I'm like, okay, we're going to do this, and this. She would go 3-4 weeks on bone broth. And she was like, I do so much better on just bone broth because all of her food was coming from her assisted living facility. It was all genetically modified, all sprayed in pesticides, all artificial ingredients. And so she would do better when we gave her no food and just bone broth and not eating anything than she would on the food. Her doctor's like, we don't want you to lose weight. She's like, but I feel good while I'm doing this. And so she kept going. About a year later, we got the next x-rays. We were up to about a 30-degree curve in her low back. We'd gotten that down to about 20 degrees, and she was in remission in about 18 months. Now, was that because I'm awesome? Did I do any healing? No, I prayed for her.
Yeah.
But ultimately what we did is that process. Identified the cause. And removed the interference. Restored the balance. Now she's going on 83, I think. Right? And no, her health isn't perfect. Right? She's paying the consequences of a lot of years of being exposed to so many things and being imbalanced. Still being in a facility where they're sanitizing everything and everything's antibiotic, everything. But she's so much better. I mean, she was putting her siblings in her place, and now her siblings are putting her in. That's how much her health has changed. And that's what we can accomplish when we work the process. So healing from the inside out is naturally focusing on what's happening. This is the tool that we use when we've tried the 4R protocol and it hasn't really moved the needle for us. Because what you need isn't a diagnosis. It's not cortisol. It's not steroids. It's not, hormone replacement therapy. It's not anti-inflammatories. Those are all masking the symptoms of the issues that you're going through. What we need to find out is why it's not working. Why isn't it happening? And so when you look at it from that perspective, this is a whole lot cheaper than decades of steroid therapy that ultimately just makes things worse. So this normal cost, I think, is what, $390, Cheryl? This GI Spotlight, yeah. So $390. You guys get 15% off that tonight if you want to take a look at what's going on. And what that is it's a stool sample. You're gonna go home, you're gonna poop in a cup. I know, everybody's favorite thing. Like, okay, where's the whole deal? And then you're gonna mail that in. There's a pre-labeled, pre-stamped FedEx package in there. And you're gonna ship that off. You don't want to let that sit in the sun. That'll do things to it that you don't want. And then in about 2 weeks, they'll send us an email that they got it and that they've done the laboratory testing. And then about 10 days after that, we'll get a notification that they've got the results for us. And then we will get on a phone call with the microbiologist that looked at the lab sample. We'll have the results in front of us. And together with the microbiologist, we will make a plan for the next 6 to 12 months for how you're going to eat. And it's going to be broken down into 2, 3, and 4 month segments. The supplements that you're going to take in those segments to address specifically what's going on inside. And oftentimes we put that on loop a couple times because what's going on inside your gut is such that it needs 2 or 3 loops of whatever is recommended. And then from there, either you're all better, which is awesome, or you retest and you see, did something else happen in the interim? Because that happens, right? This is life. Oftentimes stuff changes. And so we're gonna go way deeper into this than I'm allowing time for tonight, because this test by itself, how many hours of videos did we watch? Yeah, lots and lots, just by itself. So there's tons of stuff to test for. There's things that we learned just even as we get the test results back from our exchanges with the microbiologist. But it's a really important test that I'm on a waiting list to do. Cheryl wants to get to her daughter. April is on a waiting list to do. It's really good. Really good. So for the back row, in front of you are all the order forms. For the front row, I've got these here, so you can take one and pass it along if you like. But that's the order form for getting the 4R gut protocol. It has 2 different prices on there. One was the pre-order price, which obviously you guys missed. It's no longer pre-order, it's day of. So it's 15% off the 4R protocol today. Tomorrow, it's back to normal price. So if you change your mind and you want to do it tomorrow, sorry, this is today. Now, some of you guys are still going to have to pay for it and have it shipped in because we don't have enough for everybody. If you know you want to start it, then tonight is the night. 15% off all those things. 15% off everything. So if you know you need, your multivitamin, you know you need your vitamin D, you know you need your, whatever it is, magnesium. get it. It's on sale right now. Upcoming events, we definitely want to keep plugging in. Like I mentioned with the GI Spotlight test, 1 month from today, we are going to be diving deeper into the testing. We'll probably spend a little bit more on the genomics and the metabolomics test because we want to focus on cancer next month. Because next month, October, right? This is where we start to recognize and acknowledge what so many people are going through. But ultimately, with the testing that we're talking about here, we're able to identify the things that cause cancer before it creates cancer. And so that'll be some of what we're going on. So if you have any friends or family that are dealing with cancer or are worried about it because it's in their family, this stuff, all this is where research is focused right now. We've done the genetic testing. We know that there's no gene that actually causes cancer. Even if you have the BRCA gene for breast cancer, it only increases your risk by 5%. We know that's not where the answer is to what's causing cancer. We've identified some lifestyle stuff, and the testing helps us get even closer to that. So the more testing that we do, the more we're able to identify this stuff. So if you know somebody that's struggling with this, definitely let them know. Bring them to this class. This is going to be first of its kind class in this office. You won't have experienced this before, even if you've been to all the classes up to this point. So write this one down. This will be, I think, 5 weeks from today. Is that right? We put it at the very last Monday of the month, and I don't have
October 27th.
October 27th, so almost a month from today. So make sure that you have that on your calendar. So what are your action steps to that? Well, number one is you need 1 to 3 improvements every single time you come to one of these classes. You can't just come here and sit and be like, yep, I learned it. Check. That's knowledge without wisdom. Knowledge without wisdom is foolishness. Knowing what's wrong and continuing to do the wrong thing, that's dumb, right? Sorry, no offense to anybody here. I know you guys are fun. That's why you show up. You guys are my favorite patients. So 1 to 3 improvements each month. Why do I cap it at 3? It's too much otherwise, right? Lifestyle. We got things going on. We got habits to undo. So let's pick 1 to 3 things that we can change today and work on changing it now. You know, if we don't do that today, though, we have a 50% less likely chance of tomorrow, 50% less likely after that. So let's do it today. Tonight, let's pick 1 thing that we can do tonight and write down 2 more that we'd like to do. And if we can get to all 3, great. If not, bring those 2 to the next workshop and see if those are still the most important 2 that you need to do. Maybe it's not the most important 2, maybe it's the 2 easiest things to do. And then go. For ours, it's a 2-month protocol. So you'll be in the middle of it at the next workshop. So that's definitely important to keep in mind. Get to the next class. You can't keep growing unless you keep learning. That mind that's not growing is dying, and the mind that's dying is only controlling a dying body. And so we want to keep that growing as much as possible. And then get your community involved. And I say that not because I need you guys to bring me more patients. It's because you need your community here so that when you go to church, they're not serving you coffee and donuts. Toughest day of the week for me. I walk into that big church service and they got trays of donuts and all this bad creamer to put in my coffee that tastes so good. And am I perfect at saying no? We'll call it 99%. We'll call it 99%. I've made the decision in my brain that is not where I give myself treats, even though they're free. Right? They're supposed
That's
to.
one good thing about being gluten intolerant.
You know the price you're about to pay. But yeah, get your community involved. Your pastors should be here. They should be here. The church elders should be here. And if they're busy on a Monday night because they're leading a small group, guess where I should be on a Monday night? In that small group, teaching them because you told them about what we're doing and that I will come anywhere and I will do any class on any topic that they need to help grow our community. It's not just you that needs it. I need it too. I need to not walk into church and have those donuts out there and the cookies. Right. So help me out. Help yourselves out. All right. Questions. I know we covered a few in the intro. Anything that popped up? Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. I was actually watching a class on this. So part of the problem isn't just that we're not getting enough water, it's when we drink it. We don't drink it throughout the day. We sit down to a meal and we're like, oh my goodness, I'm thirsty. And then we drink a bunch of water, we dilute our stomach acid, and then we're wondering why we get so much indigestion afterwards. So we should be drinking through the day and not drink anything. That was something I learned in the process of getting ready for class. So good point. And that's cheap. That's cheap to change for sure. I saw another hand coming up somewhere over in this area.
You see bone broth for sale and natural growth. Is that a good substitute rather than boiling it in chicken bone?
Yes, but it's going to be more expensive. So that whole, like, let's say you go to Whole Foods and get the organic chicken that's, pre-roasted. That's going to cost you $7-8. I don't remember. It's been a while since I got one. That carcass is basically free. Plus, you got all the meat. Going to Whole Foods, Natural Grocers, Hy-Vee, wherever, getting the organic, pasture-raised bone broth. That's going to cost you $9 per quart, where you're going to be able to make 2 or 3 gallons out of the chicken. So yes, it works in a pinch. Like when I'll buy that is typically when I'm already sick. You're right, and I can't wait 24 to 48 hours to boil chicken, right? So it is good in a pinch, but from a cost effectiveness perspective, I would say save your money. Have some, freeze it. My mom has some in her freezer, and then all you have to do is thaw it, and that only takes minutes to thaw on the stove. Yeah. Do you have a question? Okay.
You're saying the chicken, right kind of chicken?
Yeah, the organic chicken that. All right, everybody got your tickets?
There's 2 that are missing.
2 missing tickets. Ruh-roh. All right, we got prizes, so you don't want to leave. All right, two people didn't get their tickets. So I'm going to read these off.
Somebody's tickets on the floor.
Oh yeah, it might have come out of the basket. It's got those inside. So we'll throw it in, and if nobody claims it, then it's not that. All right, so winner number 1. So they all start with 685, so I'll just go the last 4 digits. 1712. There we go. Hawkeye gets, should we go with the big prizes first or the little prizes? I'm the boss. Let's start with the big ones. I feel like it's harder to win on the front end, right? All right, pick a big prize and hand it to me. All right, that one's going in my pocket. All right, next one is 1713. 1713. Nope. 1713, yeah. Yeah, that's you. All right. All right, next one. 1710. All right, there we go. Dennis is this one. All right. So what are we doing? Oh, we're giving them. Yep. So the water bottle actually has a packet of the immune boosting vitamins in there. And so that's from the immune support packet. So that's that right there. So it's got your N-acetylcysteine, it's got your zinc, it's got your vitamin D3 with K2, it's got your immune support, which is echinacea, elderberry. So pretty much anything you need to fight COVID or the cold. Next one, 1718. Marta. All right, bring her prize. Next one, 1720. All right, got Kevin down front. 1720. Next one, he gets essential oil. 1715. There we go, Brad. Let's get him one. Next one, 1719. All right, Harry gets a prize. Next one, we got 1717. Almost. We got Barb for 1717. Next one, we've got 1708. Dorothea. Next one, we've got 1711. Got Pastor Bev. Next one, we've got 1709. Dennis, must be Tim. He's got two of them. 1714. Jalen won it. All right, we've got 1721. 172. Oh, that one's yours. Okay. Down here for Jen. And then last one, 1716. There we go. Bradley. Now, did everybody get a prize? Anybody missing one? No? All right. So we made sure everybody got a prize because I wanted everybody online to see that when you show up, not only do you get discounts, you get goodies. So, and they're worthwhile. They're good for you. Do let me know if you have any questions. We'll be here to help answer those as you go through the night. Purchase your supplements, pick them up tonight. Everything's 15% off. Stock up so that you don't run out in the middle of the month. Okay, guys?
Thank you.